process server found me at my desk on a Tuesday morning, right in front of my entire office. "Vesperine Dalloway?" he asked, holding a manila envelope that would destroy everything I thought I controlled. How did a simple loyalty test for my husband turn into the most humiliating moment of my life? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The idea came to me during one of Markus's jealous episodes. We were sitting in our suburban living room, the same beige walls and family photos that had witnessed 9 years of marriage, when he brought up my phone buzzing with notifications. "Who's texting you this late?" Markus asked, his accountant's precision evident even in casual conversation. He was folding laundry, methodical as always, but I caught the edge in his voice. "It's just Eliot," I said, not looking up from my phone. "You remember from college." The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Markus set down one of Sadie's school shirts and turned to face me fully. "Your ex-boyfriend, Eliot?" "We're friends now, Markus. Adults can be friends." I rolled my eyes, letting exasperation creep into my voice. This was exactly the kind of controlling behavior I'd been complaining about to my sister Tara. "He's in LA now, doing music stuff. He was just telling me about this opportunity." "What kind of opportunity?" I could see it happening again, that familiar tightening around his eyes, the way his jaw set when he felt threatened. After 9 years of marriage, I knew every tell. This was my husband's jealousy rearing its ugly head, and frankly, I was tired of it. He's got connections in the entertainment industry. He thinks I could do some consulting work, maybe expand my administrative skills into something bigger. It wasn't entirely a lie. Eliot had mentioned I was wasted in my current office job. "And he needs to text you at 10 p.m. to tell you this?" There it was. The accusation wrapped in a question. I set my phone down deliberately and turned to face my husband. "Markus, do you trust me or not?" "Of course I trust you. I just don't understand why your ex-boyfriend is suddenly so interested in your career." "Because he's my friend, because he cares about my success, because unlike some people, he doesn't see threats everywhere he looks." Markus's face went carefully neutral, another tell I recognized. When he got really upset, he went cold and analytical. "I'm not seeing threats, Vesperine. I'm seeing my wife getting late-night texts from a man she used to sleep with." "Jesus, Markus, do you hear yourself? This is exactly what I'm talking about. Your insecurity is suffocating." I stood up, pacing to the window that looked out on our quiet street. The neighborhood was settling into evening routines, porch lights coming on, garage doors closing, normal couples in normal houses, probably not having the same tired argument. "You know what?" I turned back to him, the idea crystallizing as I spoke. "Eliot invited me to visit LA next weekend. He's got meetings with some industry people, thinks I should come out and network. With your ex-boyfriend. With a friend who's trying to help my career. But you know what? I think I should go." Markus carefully folded the shirt he'd been holding. "Why would you think that?" "Because maybe it's time we figured out if this marriage is built on trust or paranoia." The words came out sharper than I'd intended, but they felt right. "If you can't handle me taking a business trip with a friend, then we have bigger problems than I thought." "A business trip? With Eliot Sharp? To Los Angeles?" "Yes, Markus, a business trip. Adults do this. They network, they explore opportunities. They don't need permission from insecure spouses." I watched him process this, saw the moment he realized I was serious. His face went through several expressions: surprise, hurt, anger, and finally, that careful blankness that meant he was thinking. "How long?" he asked quietly. "Just the weekend, Friday to Sunday." "And you've already decided?" It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "I think I need to. For me, and honestly, for us. If you can't trust me for 3 days, then what are we even doing here?" From upstairs came the sound of Sadie moving around in her room. Our 9-year-old daughter, who had no idea her parents were having the kind of conversation that could change everything. "Mommy, Daddy?" Her voice drifted down. "I can't find my library book." "Coming, sweetheart," I called back, grateful for the interruption. I looked at Markus one more time. Think about it. Really think about whether you trust your wife or not. I left him standing in the living room, surrounded by half-folded laundry and the weight of my ultimatum. Later that night, after we'd helped Sadie find her book and gotten her settled, I called Tara from our bedroom while Markus was downstairs. "You're really going to do this?" my sister asked. At 29, Tara was 3 years younger than me, but had always been my biggest supporter. "Good for you, Vesp. It's about time you stood up to his controlling bullshit." "It's not bullshit, Tara. It's just, he doesn't trust me. After 9 years of marriage, he still sees threats everywhere. Because he's insecure. You deserve to have friends, to explore opportunities. You've been stuck in that office job forever, and now someone wants to help you do something bigger, and Markus can't handle it." "Exactly." I kept my voice low, aware that sound traveled in our house. "I mean, if he trusted me, this wouldn't even be an issue. So go. Show him that you're not going to be controlled. Show him that trust works both ways." After we hung up, I lay in bed next to my husband, listening to his careful breathing. He wasn't asleep, I could tell by the tension in his body, but he wasn't talking either. "Markus?" I whispered. "Yeah." "I booked the flight, Friday morning, back Sunday night." The silence stretched so long I thought he might have fallen asleep after all. Then, "Okay." Just okay. No argument, no pleading, no dramatic declarations, just acceptance that felt somehow more ominous than anger would have. I rolled over, facing away from him, and smiled into my pillow. Phase 1 complete. By Monday, we'd know once and for all whether my husband could handle being married to an independent woman. What I didn't see was Markus quietly reaching for his phone, opening his notes app and typing, "V2LA, Frysun, Eliot Sharp. Flight booked, Tuesday, 10:47 p.m. He just stared at the screen for a long moment, like he'd already made up his mind about something. Los Angeles hit me like a warm embrace after the cold March weather back home. Eliot met me at LAX, looking exactly like the musician he'd become. Artfully tousled hair, designer jeans that probably cost more than my monthly car payment, and that same crooked smile that had gotten me into trouble in college. "Vesperine Dalloway," he said, pulling me into a hug that lasted just a beat too long. "Still beautiful as ever." "Still a charmer," I laughed, but I didn't pull away immediately. It felt good to be appreciated, to be seen as attractive by someone who wasn't analyzing my every move for signs of betrayal. His apartment in Silver Lake was everything my suburban life wasn't. Exposed brick, vintage guitars mounted on walls, floor-to-ceiling windows that let in the kind of light that made everything look like a movie scene. "This is incredible," I said, setting my bag down and turning in a slow circle. "You've really made it." "Getting there." He handed me a glass of wine, something expensive and red that I'd never heard of. The music industry's been good to me, better than that corporate job I had in Phoenix. We settled on his leather couch, and I felt myself relaxing for the first time in months. No laundry to fold, no dishes to wash, no husband watching my phone for suspicious activity. "So tell me about these meetings," I said, "the networking opportunities." Eliot's smile shifted slightly. "Right, the meetings. Well, there's this guy I know, produces content for streaming platforms, always looking for organized people who understand business operations." "That sounds perfect. When do we meet him?" "Actually, he's out of town this weekend, last-minute thing." Eliot moved closer on the couch. "But I thought we could explore the city, catch up properly. It's been, 6 years since we've seen each other?" Something cold settled in my stomach. "So there's no meeting?" "There will be, just not this weekend. But hey, you're here, I'm here. And LA's got a lot to offer. His hand found mine on the couch cushion. Besides, don't you think we deserve some time to reconnect? Just as friends, of course. My phone buzzed. Markus checking in as promised. How's the flight? Safe landing? I looked at the text, then at Eliot watching me with those familiar green eyes, then at the expensive wine, and the perfect apartment, and the California sunshine streaming through windows. Everything's great, I typed back. Just got to the hotel, about to head to dinner with some potential contacts. It was a small lie, barely a lie at all, really. I was having dinner, just not with business contacts. Miss you already, Markus replied. Tell me about the meetings tomorrow. I turned my phone face down on the coffee table. Husband checking up, Eliot asked. Something like that. I took a long sip of wine. He's protective. Controlling, you mean? The word hung between us. I'd been thinking it for months, but hearing someone else say it felt like permission. Maybe a little, I admitted. You know, I always wondered what happened to that independent girl I knew in college. The one who'd drive to Vegas on a whim, who'd stay up all night talking about changing the world. She got married, had a kid, grew up, or got buried under someone else's expectations. We went to dinner at a trendy cafe in Los Feliz, the kind of place where beautiful people sat at sidewalk tables and talked about projects and opportunities. Eliot knew the hostess, who seated us at a prime table where we could watch the sunset paint the Hollywood hills gold and pink. This is my life now, he said, gesturing at the scene around us. Creative people, interesting conversations, possibilities everywhere you look. I thought about my office back home, the beige cubicle where I processed invoices and scheduled meetings for other people. The suburban house where every conversation seemed to circle back to schedules and responsibilities, and who forgot to take out the trash. It must be nice, I said. It could be your life too, you know. You're smart, organized, good with people. You could do anything out here. I have a daughter, a life. Lives can change. People leave marriages that don't serve them anymore. The wine was making everything feel soft around the edges. Eliot's hand covered mine across the table, and I didn't pull away. I'm not unhappy, I said, but it sounded weak even to me. Aren't you? When's the last time your husband looked at you the way I'm looking at you right now? I couldn't remember. Markus looked at me like I was a problem to solve, a risk to manage. When had he stopped looking at me like a woman he desired? Back at his apartment, we sat on the couch again, closer this time. The wine had done its work, and the city lights twinkled beyond the windows like promises. I should call Markus, I said, but I didn't reach for my phone. Should you, or do you think you should? There's a difference. There's always a difference. Eliot's thumb traced across my knuckles. What do you want to do? What I wanted was to feel desired again. What I wanted was to remember what it felt like to be chosen rather than managed. What I wanted was to prove to myself that I was still the kind of woman who could drive to Vegas on a whim. When he kissed me, I kissed him back. It was just a kiss, I told myself, just a moment of connection with someone who saw me as more than a wife and mother, an administrative assistant. Just a test of my own independence, proof that I wasn't completely buried under Markus's expectations. But when my phone rang, Markus's ringtone cutting through the warm LA evening, I felt a chill run through me. Don't answer it, Eliot whispered against my lips. So I didn't. The next morning, I woke up in Eliot's bed, sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, the weight of what I'd done settling over me like a lead blanket. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Markus and 2 text messages. Hope you're having a good time. Call when you can. Getting worried. Just want to make sure you're okay. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Eliot, and went to the bathroom to call my husband back. Hey, I said when he answered, trying to sound normal. Sorry I missed your calls. We were out late, networking. It's okay. How did the meetings go? Really well. Lots of potential opportunities. The lies came easier than they should have. I might need to come back out here soon to follow up. That's great, Vesp. I'm proud of you for pursuing this. His genuine happiness for my supposed success made my stomach twist. I caught sight of myself in Eliot's bathroom mirror. Hair messed from sleep, makeup smudged, wearing yesterday's clothes. I looked like exactly what I was. I should go, I said quickly. More meetings today. Love you. Love you too. I hung up and stared at my reflection. It was just one night, I told myself. One moment of weakness that didn't have to mean anything. Markus would never know, and I'd go home with proof that his jealousy was unfounded. I hadn't left him, hadn't destroyed our family. I'd just explored a possibility. When I came out of the bathroom, Eliot was awake, propped up on pillows and smiling at me. Morning, beautiful. How's the guilt? I'm not guilty. I'm just processing. Good. Guilt is for people who've done something wrong. You haven't done anything wrong. But as I got dressed and prepared to face another day in LA, another day of lies and careful omissions, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd started something I didn't know how to finish. I felt a chill, but I told myself he'd never find out. The flight home felt like traveling between two different worlds. LA Vesperine, the woman who'd spent 3 days being desired and appreciated, slowly transformed back into suburban Vesperine, wife and mother and office administrator. By the time we touched down, I'd almost convinced myself that the weekend had been a dream. Almost. Markus picked me up at the airport, and Sadie bounced in the back seat, chattering about school and friends and the movie they'd watched while I was gone. My husband looked tired, but smiled when he saw me. How was it? He asked, taking my bag and giving me a quick kiss on the cheek. Productive, I said, which wasn't entirely a lie. I'd learned things about myself, about what I was capable of. Really eye-opening. Mommy, did you bring me anything? Sadie asked. I'd completely forgotten to buy her a souvenir, too caught up in my own drama to think about my daughter. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Mommy was so busy with meetings, I didn't have time to shop, but I'll make it up to you. In the rearview mirror, I saw Sadie's face fall slightly, and guilt twisted in my chest. Good mothers remembered their children when they traveled. Good mothers didn't get so distracted by their own selfish desires that they forgot the people who mattered most. It's okay, Mommy, Sadie said, because she was a good kid who'd learned not to ask for too much. That evening, while Sadie did homework at the kitchen table and Markus made dinner, I called Tara to debrief. So how was the test? She asked immediately. Did Markus pass? He was fine while I was gone. No dramatic calls, no accusations. Maybe a little worried when I didn't answer one night. But overall, I paused, choosing my words carefully. I think I proved my point. Good for you, and how was reconnecting with Eliot? I lowered my voice, moving to the living room where I could speak more freely. It was intense. He's doing really well for himself out there. Intense how? It was nice to be around someone who appreciates me, you know? Someone who sees my potential instead of just seeing problems to manage. Did anything happen? The question hung in the air. I could tell Tara the truth, that I'd kissed my ex-boyfriend, that I'd spent the night in his bed, that I'd betrayed my marriage vows for the first time in 9 years. Or I could keep that secret locked away where it belonged. We're just friends, Tara, but it was good to remember who I used to be before I became so domestic. Well, I'm proud of you for standing up to Markus's controlling behavior. Maybe now he'll think twice before questioning your friendships. After dinner, I unpacked while Markus helped Sadie with a science project. I found myself checking my phone constantly, waiting for a text from Eliot, some acknowledgement of what had happened between us. But there was nothing. Maybe that was for the best. Maybe we could both just pretend it had been a moment of weakness and move on. The first sign that things weren't going to be that simple came at Markus's parents' house the following Sunday. We'd gone for our usual family dinner, Donna's pot roast and Ray's quiet presence, Sadie playing with the dog while the adults talked. "How was your business trip, dear?" Donna asked, as she passed the mashed potatoes. At 61, my mother-in-law had the kind of sharp intelligence that came from raising 3 successful children and managing a household for 4 decades. Really good, lots of networking opportunities in LA. LA's quite a place, Ray commented. Different world out there. It really is. So much creativity and energy. It makes you think about possibilities. I felt Markus watching me as I talked, but when I glanced at him, his expression was unreadable. "And this was through a friend of yours?" Donna continued. "An old college friend. He's in the music industry now, has connections with streaming platforms and production companies. How nice that he thought of you for business opportunities." There was something in Donna's tone I couldn't quite place. Old friends can be so helpful. Markus set down his fork. "Eliot Sharp," he said quietly. "Vesperine's ex-boyfriend from college." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Ray cleared his throat and reached for his water glass. Sadie, oblivious to the adult tension, continued eating and chatting about school. "I see," Donna said, her voice carefully neutral. "And he's married now? This old friend?" "No, he's single, focused on his career." I could hear how defensive I sounded and tried to modulate my tone. "But we're just friends now. Adults can maintain friendships with people they used to date." "Of course they can," Donna agreed, but her eyes were sharp. "If everyone involved is comfortable with those friendships." "Everyone should be comfortable," I said, looking directly at Markus. "If there's trust in the relationship." "Trust," Ray repeated as if testing the word. "That's important in a marriage." The conversation moved on to other topics, but I could feel the undercurrent of tension. Later, as we drove home, Sadie fell asleep in the back seat, and Markus and I sat in silence. "Your parents seem to have opinions about my trip," I finally said. "They're just protective of our family." "Our family is fine, Markus. I went on a business trip. I networked. I explored opportunities. That's what adults do. Adults also communicate honestly with their spouses." Something in his tone made me look at him more carefully. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just that honesty is important in a marriage." We pulled into our driveway, and Markus carried Sadie upstairs while I gathered my purse and the leftovers Donna had insisted we take home. As I watched my husband's gentle care with our sleeping daughter, guilt twisted in my stomach again, but I pushed it down. I'd done nothing wrong. I'd proven that Markus's jealousy was unfounded, that I could be trusted to maintain appropriate friendships with other men. The fact that I'd kissed Eliot was irrelevant. It hadn't meant anything, and it would never happen again. At dinner the next Sunday, Markus asked me, quietly but publicly, if I'd enjoyed LA. "Of course I did," I laughed, aware that his parents and Sadie were listening. "It was a great opportunity." "I'm sure it was," he said, and something in his tone made Donna's eyes narrow as she looked between us. But I laughed it off, secure in the knowledge that my secret was safe, that my test had been successful, that my marriage would be stronger for having survived my little rebellion. I had no idea that my husband had already started building a case that would destroy everything I thought I controlled. The first crack appeared on a Wednesday morning when my boss, Jennifer Walsh, stopped by my desk with a puzzled expression. "Vesperine, did you give our office address to someone for personal mail? We received something addressed to Markus Dalloway, care of our office." My blood went cold. "What kind of mail?" "Legal envelope, very official looking. I put it on your desk." The manila envelope sat there like a bomb waiting to explode. Heavy paper, law firm return address, my husband's name typed in formal business font. I stared at it for a full minute before picking it up with trembling hands. Why would Markus have legal mail sent to my office? We had a perfectly good home address. Unless he didn't want me to see it at home. Unless he was planning something that required privacy. I slipped the envelope into my purse, my mind racing. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe he was updating his will or handling some business matter he didn't want to worry me with. Maybe it had nothing to do with me at all. but deep down, I knew it had everything to do with me. That evening, I waited until Markus was helping Sadie with homework before calling Tara from our bedroom. "I think Markus is up to something," I said without preamble. "What do you mean?" "He had legal mail sent to my office today. Who does that? If it was innocent, why not have it sent to the house? Maybe he's planning a surprise, like updating insurance beneficiaries or something romantic like that." But even Tara sounded doubtful. We both knew that Markus wasn't the surprise type, and there was nothing romantic about having mail sent to your wife's workplace. "I think he's suspicious about LA," I continued. "He's been different since I got back, more formal, more distant." "Different how?" "He's too polite, like he's being careful about what he says, and he's been working late more often, which isn't like him." "Working late or saying he's working late?" The distinction hit me like a slap. "You think he's having me followed? I think you should be careful. If Markus is planning something legal, you need to protect yourself." After we hung up, I lay in bed next to my husband, hyper-aware of every breath, every movement. When had we become strangers sharing a bed? When had our marriage become a chess game where neither player could see the other's pieces? The next day brought another crack. I was in the break room heating up leftover soup when my coworker Amanda approached with the kind of careful expression people wear when they're about to deliver bad news. "Hey, Vesp, I don't know if this is important, but there was a guy here yesterday asking questions about you." My soup exploded in the microwave, but I barely noticed. "What kind of questions?" "Just weird stuff, like what time you usually get to work, whether you travel for business, if you seem happy in your marriage." Amanda lowered her voice. "I think he might have been a private investigator." The break room tilted around me. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing. I mean, I told him he should talk to HR if he had legitimate business here. But Vesp, why would someone be investigating you?" I managed to clean up the soup mess and make it back to my desk without falling apart, but my hands were shaking as I reached for my phone. I needed to call Eliot, needed to know if anyone had been asking questions about our weekend together. He answered on the third ring, sounding distracted. "Vesperine? This is unexpected." "Has anyone contacted you about me? Asked questions about our weekend?" "What kind of questions?" "Any kind." "Please, Eliot, this is important." There was a pause that lasted too long. "Actually, yeah. Some guy called yesterday, said he was doing a background check for a job you'd applied for. Asked about our relationship, whether we'd been intimate recently." My vision went grey around the edges. "What did you tell him?" "I told him it was none of his business. But Vesp, if your husband hired a PI..." I hung up before he could finish the sentence. "A private investigator. Markus had hired someone to follow me, to ask questions about my personal life, to dig into my weekend in LA. The man I'd been married to for 9 years, the father of my child, had chosen to spy on me rather than trust me. The hypocrisy was staggering. I'd gone to LA to prove that his jealousy was unfounded, and he'd responded by having me investigated like a criminal. I spent the rest of the day in a fog of anger and fear. When I got home, Markus was in the kitchen starting dinner, looking perfectly normal, domestic, innocent. "How was your day?" he asked, not looking up from the cutting board. "Fine." I watched him dice onions with precise, methodical strokes. "How was yours?" "Busy. End of quarter reporting. You know how it is." Such a normal conversation, such a normal evening. If I didn't know better, I'd think we were just a regular married couple discussing our regular married lives. But I did know better now. "Markus," I said carefully, "is there anything you want to tell me?" He paused in his chopping, considering the question. "Like what?" "Like anything that might affect our family. Any decisions you might be making." "I make lots of decisions every day, Vesp. You'll have to be more specific." The careful politeness in his voice confirmed what I already suspected. He knew. Somehow, some way, he knew about Eliot, and he was building a case against me. "Never mind," I said. "I'm going to check on Sadie." As I left the kitchen, I heard him resume chopping, each stroke of the knife precise and deliberate. That night, I deleted every text message from Eliot, every photo from LA, every piece of evidence I could think of. I cleared my browser history, my call logs, my social media messages. If Markus wanted to play detective, I'd make sure he didn't find anything to use against me. But as I lay in bed, listening to my husband's careful breathing, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was already too late. The envelope at my office, the private investigator, the formal politeness, it all pointed to a man who'd already made up his mind about something. I felt a cold wave run through me as I realized that my test might have backfired in ways I never imagined. The hunter had become the hunted, and I was just beginning to understand how thoroughly I'd been outmaneuvered. The process server found me at exactly 10:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, right as I was settling in with my morning coffee and the quarterly reports Jennifer had asked me to review. He was professional, polite, and utterly devastating. Vesperine Dalloway. Yes? You've been served. The manila envelope felt impossibly heavy in my hands. Around me, the office had gone quiet. That particular silence that falls when everyone is pretending not to watch a personal drama unfold in public. I waited until I was in the bathroom to open it, my hands shaking so badly I could barely tear the seal. Petition for legal separation, the header read in stark black letters. Below that, in careful legal language, my marriage was dissected like a specimen in a lab. Irreconcilable differences. Breakdown of the marital relationship. Adultery. That last word hit me like a physical blow. He knew. Not only did he know, but he had evidence. Exhibit A, credit card statements showing charges at LA restaurants and bars. Exhibit B, cell phone records showing deleted text messages. Exhibit C, witness statements from the private investigator. My legs gave out, and I sank onto the bathroom floor, legal papers scattered around me like the pieces of my shattered life. How had it come to this? I'd gone to LA to prove that Markus was too controlling, too jealous, too insecure. Instead, I'd handed him the ammunition he needed to destroy me. I called in sick for the rest of the day and drove home in a daze, the separation papers burning like acid in my purse. The house was empty, Sadie at school, Markus at work, maintaining the illusion of normalcy while our world imploded. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried texting, but got no response. Finally, I called his office. Dalloway and Associates, this is Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca, it's Vesperine. Is Markus available? Oh, hi, Mrs. Dalloway. I'm sorry, but Mr. Dalloway is in meetings all day. Can I take a message? Just tell him I got his message. Tell him we need to talk. Of course, I'll let him know. But I knew he wouldn't call back. This was Markus at his most methodical. Every move calculated, every response planned. He'd served me with papers at my workplace, in front of my colleagues, ensuring maximum humiliation. This wasn't the act of an emotional, jealous husband. This was strategic warfare. I called Tara, desperate for someone to tell me this could all be fixed. He served you at work? Her voice was sharp with outrage. That's deliberately cruel. He's trying to embarrass you. Tara, what am I going to do? He has evidence. He knows about Eliot. What exactly does he know? I told her about the credit card statements, the witness statements, the deleted messages that had somehow been recovered. With each detail, the hole I dug for myself grew deeper. Okay, Tara said finally. Okay, this isn't insurmountable. So you kissed your ex-boyfriend. So what? You didn't leave Markus. You didn't destroy your family. One kiss doesn't justify this nuclear response. It wasn't just a kiss. The silence stretched between us. I slept with him. One night. It didn't mean anything, but it happened. It happened. Another silence, then. We need to get you a lawyer. If Markus wants to play hardball, you need protection. When Markus came home that evening, He moved through the house like a ghost, present but untouchable. He helped Sadie with homework, made dinner, folded laundry, all while maintaining perfect politeness with me. "We need to talk," I said after Sadie had gone to bed. "I think the papers covered everything that needs to be said." "Markus, please, let me explain." He turned to face me fully for the first time in weeks, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger, not hurt, but something colder. Disappointment so complete it had calcified into indifference. "What would you like to explain, Vesperine? How you lied about the business meetings? How you deleted text messages? How you betrayed our marriage vows with your ex-boyfriend?" Each question was delivered in the same calm, professional tone he used for client meetings. It was more devastating than screaming would have been. "I made a mistake," I whispered. "One mistake. We can work through this." "A mistake." He considered the word. "Is that what you call planning a weekend with your ex-boyfriend, lying to me about your whereabouts, and sleeping with another man?" I was trying to prove a point about trust. "You were trying to prove a point about trust by cheating on me." When he said it like that, the logic that had seemed so clear in my head crumbled completely. "I want custody of Sadie," he continued in that same professional tone. "Primary custody. You can have supervised visitation until we determine what's in her best interest. You can't take my daughter from me." "I can, and I will. I have evidence of adultery, evidence of deception, evidence that you prioritized your own desires over your family's well-being." He picked up a folder from the kitchen counter. More papers, more evidence, more ammunition in his carefully constructed case. "I also have documentation of your attempts to manipulate friends and family members, to gaslight me about my legitimate concerns, and to destroy evidence of your affair." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Custody hearing scheduled for Friday, 2 p.m. Bring representation. Davidson and Associates." I stared at the message, then at my husband, then at the ruins of the life I'd thought I controlled. "This is really happening," I said, more to myself than to him. "This is really happening," he confirmed. "I'll be staying at my parents' house until the hearing. You can explain to Sadie why Daddy won't be living here anymore." He walked upstairs, and I heard him moving around in our bedroom, packing clothes with the same methodical precision he brought to everything else. 20 minutes later, he came back downstairs with a suitcase and his laptop bag. At the front door, he paused. "For what it's worth, Vesperine, I really did trust you. Right up until the moment you proved I shouldn't." Then he was gone, and I was alone in the house, with the weight of what I'd destroyed, and the terrifying knowledge that my husband had been 3 steps ahead of me from the very beginning. My phone buzzed again. Markus's lawyer, requesting an immediate custody meeting. The test was over, and I had failed more spectacularly than I'd ever imagined possible. The law office of Davidson and Associates occupied the top floor of a glass building downtown, all polished marble and intimidating diplomas. I sat in the waiting area with my hastily hired attorney, Patricia Chen, watching the clock tick toward 2 p.m. and trying not to throw up. "Remember," Patricia said quietly, "answer only what's asked. Don't volunteer information, don't get emotional, and don't try to justify your actions. We're here to negotiate custody and asset division, not to relitigate your marriage." Through the conference room's glass walls, I could see Markus sitting with his lawyer, Robert Davidson, a man whose reputation for ruthless efficiency had apparently been well earned. My husband looked calm, professional, like he was attending any other business meeting. He'd even worn his best suit. "Mrs. Dalloway," Davidson began once we were all seated, "my client is prepared to offer you generous visitation rights in exchange for primary custody of your daughter and an equitable division of marital assets." "Define generous," Patricia replied. Davidson slid a document across the polished table. "Every other weekend, alternating holidays, 2 weeks in summer, all contingent on completion of counseling and demonstration of stable living arrangements." I stared at the paper. the words blurring together. 2 weeks in summer, every other weekend. This was my daughter they were discussing like a business transaction. That's not acceptable, I said, ignoring Patricia's warning look. Sadie needs her mother. You can't just— Mrs. Dalloway, Davidson interrupted smoothly. Given the circumstances that led to the separation, my client believes this arrangement serves the child's best interests. What circumstances? I made one mistake. You committed adultery. Davidson's voice remained professionally neutral. You lied repeatedly to your husband about your whereabouts and activities. You attempted to manipulate family members and friends to support a false narrative about your husband's behavior. You deleted evidence of your affair and coached your paramour on how to respond to inquiries. Each accusation hit like a physical blow. Across the table, Markus watched with that same calm expression, as if we were discussing quarterly tax reports instead of the destruction of our family. Furthermore, Davidson continued, producing another folder, we have evidence that you used marital funds to finance your affair, that you neglected your parental duties during the period of infidelity, and that you have shown no genuine remorse for your actions. That's not true, I protested. I love my daughter. I've been a good mother for 9 years. Until you chose to prioritize your relationship with Mr. Sharp over your family's well-being. Patricia leaned forward. Mr. Davidson, while my client acknowledges that mistakes were made, this seems like an extreme response to what amounts to a brief indiscretion. A brief indiscretion. Davidson opened yet another folder. How many did he have? Mrs. Dalloway, would you like to tell your attorney about the text messages we recovered? The ones where you told Mr. Sharp you were considering leaving your husband. The ones where you discussed meeting him again in Las Vegas. My blood turned to ice. There had been no Las Vegas plans, no discussions about leaving Markus. But in the aftermath of my LA weekend, high on the attention and validation, I might have sent messages that could be interpreted that way. I never said I was leaving my husband, I said weakly. Davidson produced printed text messages, my words laid out in damning black and white. Messages I'd thought were deleted forever, recovered by forensic specialists, and presented like evidence in a criminal trial. Maybe it's time I stopped pretending to be happy, he read aloud. Maybe some people are meant for bigger things than suburban mediocrity. I remembered typing those words, remembered the wine and the California sunshine, and the intoxicating feeling of being desired. But hearing them read back, in the sterile conference room, they sounded like the words of a stranger. Markus will never understand who I really am, Davidson continued. He sees threats everywhere because deep down he knows he's not enough for me. Stop, I whispered. I think about you all the time now, about what it would be like if things were different. Patricia put a restraining hand on my arm as I started to stand. That's enough, Mr. Davidson. We get the picture. Do we? Davidson closed the folder with theatrical precision. Because from where I sit, this looks like a pattern of deception and betrayal that goes far beyond a single night of poor judgment. The room fell silent except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic 20 floors below. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. Patricia's professional sympathy, Davidson's cold assessment, and worst of all, Markus's complete indifference. What do you want? I asked finally. Primary custody. Markus spoke for the first time since we'd sat down. Full financial protection, and for you to stop telling people I was controlling or abusive. I have witnesses who heard you spreading those lies, and I won't have my reputation destroyed to salvage yours. I never said you were abusive. You told your sister I was emotionally abusive. You told your co-workers I was harassing you. You told our friends I was paranoid and controlling. His voice remained level, but I caught a flash of the hurt underneath. You spent months building a case against me to justify what you were planning to do. The truth of it hit me like a sledgehammer. I had been building a case, creating a narrative where Markus was the villain and I was the victim of his unreasonable jealousy. I'd been so convinced of my own righteousness that I'd never stopped to consider how my words might sound to others. "I want to see the custody evaluation," Patricia said, trying to regain control of the negotiation. Davidson slid another document across the table. "Dr. Elizabeth Morrison, child psychologist. She's interviewed both parties and observed interactions with the minor child." I scanned the report with growing horror. Words jumped out at me. Manipulative behavior. Prioritizes personal desires. Difficulty accepting responsibility. Child shows anxiety when discussing mother's recent behavior. "This is biased," I said desperately. "She only talked to me once." "She talked to you 3 times, Davidson corrected. "She also interviewed your daughter, your husband, both sets of grandparents, and several family friends. The picture that emerged was consistent." Patricia was reading over my shoulder, and I could feel her growing concern. "We'd like to request our own evaluation." "That's your right, of course, but given the evidence we've presented, I doubt the results will be significantly different." The mediation continued for another hour, but the outcome was never in doubt. I watched my life being divided up like corporate assets. The house, to be sold, proceeds split. The cars, I could keep the Honda. The savings accounts, frozen pending final settlement. And most devastatingly, my daughter, primary custody to Markus, visitation for me pending completion of counseling. "There is one more thing," Davidson said as we prepared to leave. "My client would like you to know that he's prepared to be generous in the final settlement, but only if you agree to stop the character assassination. No more lies about his behavior, no more attempts to turn friends and family against him. A clean break, with dignity intact on both sides." I looked across the table at the man I'd been married to for 9 years, the father of my child, the person I'd systematically betrayed and then tried to paint as the villain in our story. "Markus," I said quietly, "I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know that I'm sorry." He studied my face for a long moment, as if trying to determine whether my apology was genuine or just another manipulation. "I know you are," he said finally, "but sorry doesn't undo the damage. Sorry doesn't give me back the trust you destroyed. Sorry doesn't explain to our daughter why her family fell apart." The judge reviewed the evidence the following week. The text messages, the credit card statements, the witness testimonials, the psychological evaluation. She granted Markus primary custody, awarded him the house and the majority of our assets, and ordered me to complete counseling before my visitation rights could be fully restored. As we left the courthouse, Markus stopped on the steps. "For what it's worth, Vesperine, I really did love you. I would have done anything to make our marriage work, but you decided that wasn't enough." He walked away, dignity restored, leaving me standing alone on the courthouse steps with the ruins of everything I'd thought I could control. My test had been completed. I'd proven that trust, once broken, couldn't be rebuilt with apologies and excuses. I'd learned that actions have consequences, that lies have a way of surfacing, and that the person you think you're manipulating might be 3 steps ahead of you the entire time. Most importantly, I discovered that some games can only be won by not playing them at all.